The millionaire, the black maid, the poor woman, the babysitter, and the homeless man. Jake Sullivan was the Miami boatyard king, young, fierce, and unstoppable. Everyone knew him as the millionaire with sun-faded hair and a smile sharp enough to cut through the salt air. His family's humble dock had turned into an empire, a playground of yachts and luxury, shimmering under the scorching Florida sun. But just last week, everything cracked open. The accident hit like a thunderclap. A twisted wheel, a sudden skid, a bone-shattering crash. Jake's body screamed in pain as the world blurred into darkness. When he woke, bright white walls circled him, his legs useless, a terrifying silence pressing down on his chest. Paralyzed. That was the brutal word they whispered. The millionaire, reduced to a body that wouldn't move. Then there was Diana Blake, his fiancée, sleek and cold, with violet eyes that seemed to pierce through his pain. She hovered like a shadow, a beautiful puppet man. Her whispered deals, her icy smirks as she signed contracts behind his back, the fiancé transformed overnight into a silent storm of control. But at the dim edge of despair was Emily, the physiotherapist. Not like the high society players Jake was used to. Emily's touch was warm, patient. Her brown eyes held no judgment, just quiet understanding. She didn't see the millionaire. She saw the man who trembled inside, the soul drowning in his own skin. Every session, every click of the therapy room's ceiling fan was a chance to start over. His world, once all glitter and power, began to flicker with something new, hope. Their talks grew longer. Her laughter cracked his loneliness. Emily's presence seeped into the sterile hospital light, turning it softer. The boundaries blurred between patient and therapist, challenge and comfort. Jake felt his heart stir like never before, a revolt overtaking the hollow space where fear lived. But Diana's shadow lingered, dark and demanding, threatening to snuff out that fragile ember. And then, the secrets surfaced. Whispers in the boardroom, secret files slipped in under Jake's door, a betrayal that tasted bitter and foul. Diana's intentions weren't just cold ambition. There was something rawer, fiercer, a plan that could steal everything Jake fought to protect. His fists clenched. Anger burned hot inside his chest, mingling with the ache of broken dreams and betrayed trust. Now Jake stands at a crossroads, between the life he lost and a path growing brighter with Emily's courage beside him. But uncertainty gnaws at him. Could he trust again? Was love with Emily real, or just a boat adrift in a storm? And what dangerous moves was Diana plotting next, beneath her polished smile? The city sun dares to rise again over Miami's marinas. The millionaire, the black maid, the poor woman, the babysitter, and the homeless man, all tangled in a web of power, manipulation, and what will come next? Who will win when the tides turn? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And while you're at it, hit that powerful like button. It really helps with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jake's heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped animal as the sun dipped lower over Miami's skyline. He felt the weight of his choice pressing on him, the dual promise of hope and danger. Would he dare to reach for Emily? Would he confront Diana? The stakes were too high. His life and legacy spun around like a thrill ride gone wrong. Diana was back at the hospital, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor. Dressed in a tailored suit, she radiated icy power. Jake's stomach twisted at the thought of what she might say, what she might do. Would she accuse him of weakness? Would she dissolve the little progress he'd made with Emily? The doors swung open, and she marched in with an air of dominance. "Jake," she said, her voice as smooth as silk, yet laced with poison. "We need to talk business." He watched her closely. There was a fire in her violet eyes that felt more threatening than ever. "Business?" he echoed, unsure if it was even real anymore. "To discuss your future and the company." Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, more a warning than an invitation. "You need to understand your role, what this means for us." He opened his mouth, ready to fight back, when suddenly a loud crash echoed through the hallway. A commotion erupted outside. Shouts and gasps ricocheted off the walls like bullets. Jake's heart raced faster, a lump forming in his throat as he strained to hear the rising chaos. "What the?" Diana's voice sliced through the tension, her expression shifting from cold confidence to alarm. Then, an ambulance screeched to a halt outside. The familiar red and white blurred against the backdrop of the sun setting behind the buildings. Jake's chest tightened. A moment later, the door burst open, revealing a team of paramedics rushing a gurney inside. Emily. Panic gripped him. "What happened?" he shouted, eyes locked on the frantic scene unfolding just beyond his view. Diana's face paled, the calm facade shattering. I don't know," she stammered, guilt seeping from her voice. Jake didn't wait. He bolted from the room, legs still weak but fueled by fear. Nurses stepped out of the way, their expressions a mix of urgency and confusion. Around him, shouts turned to whispers, the atmosphere crackling with uncertainty. Everyone's eyes turned toward the chaos, and for a moment, Jake felt the world shrink, leaving only the image of Emily. As he burst through the doors into the emergency room, there she lay, pale skin against stark white sheets. An oxygen mask covered her mouth, her body eerily still. A doctor leaned over her, frowning deeply as he barked orders. "Get the IV set up, bedside, now." Jake's breath caught, chest tight, vision swimming with dread. Why was she here? Panic twisted like a knife in his gut. He took a step closer, blurring the lines of the distance he thought was safe. And then the twist hit him like a lightning bolt. A nurse approached, breathless, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Jake Sullivan," she called out, "you need to know Emily had a reaction during your last session." Diana's sharp intake of breath echoed behind him. The implications laced through the air like poison. "What do you mean?" Jake's voice trembled, every part of him screaming for clarity. The nurse exchanged glances with the doctor, hesitating. "She discovered something while helping your recovery. Something about you and your past." Jake's heart sank, confusion battering his thoughts. What could she have found that required an ambulance? What had Emily stumbled upon? "Emily, no!" he gasped, dread slithering through his veins, but he had no idea what lay ahead. The truth was lurking just beneath the surface, threatening to unravel everything. Would Diana seize this moment to snuff out the flicker of hope? Or was there a darker secret waiting to be revealed? Jake stood frozen, heart racing, as the world spiraled into chaos. What had he lost? What could be saved? And most importantly, what had Emily unearthed that could change everything? Jake stared at Emily, fear clawing at his insides. The nurse's voice echoed in his ears, heavy with dread. She discovered something about you and your past. He couldn't breathe. He stepped forward, desperate for answers, but was met with a wall of chaos and noise. "Jake!" The doctor's voice cut through the haze. "We need to move." Jake felt the world tilt. He forced himself to focus, forcing his legs into action as he caught a glimpse of Emily's still form. Her skin was ghostly against the white sheets. Would she be okay? A rush of guilt washed over him, made worse by the looming shadow of Diana behind him. With a few swift movements, the paramedics wheeled Emily into a treatment room. Jake clenched his fists, anger and fear clashing inside him. He wanted answers, and he would gladly tear down walls to get them. Yet a part of him hesitated. Diana stood close, her eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up a wounded victim. And then, just as the door swung shut, a loud crash echoed through the corridor. Metal clattering against the floor, screams erupting from somewhere down the hall. Jake's heart raced. He turned, eyes wide, instinct screaming at him to run. "What the hell?" Diana muttered, her calculated mask slipping again as she glanced toward the chaos. Without a thought, Jake dashed away from the treatment room, following the echoing sounds of panic. The emergency hallway loomed ahead, buzzing with frantic movements and anguished voices. In a dim corner, he saw a group of nurses gathered around a fallen figure, shocked, trembling hands clutching the body on the floor. As he got closer, a sickening realization set in. "No," he breathed, horror crashing over him like a wave. The body was a familiar sight. "Jake!" a voice called out. Jonathan, his childhood friend and former business partner. His face was twisted in shock, blood covering his shirt. "Diana, she's..." The words trailed off. "Leave." Jake felt the walls close in. "What happened?" Diana, she just..." Jonathan faltered, fear in his eyes. It all went wrong. She was coming to see you, but..." "Get her help!" Jake shouted. But it was too late. Sirens wailed outside as more ambulances arrived, but the urgency felt shallow. Time was racing away. Then, in a horrible twist, Jake's mind raced back to the words of the nurse. Emily discovered something. He thought back to their last session, the digging, the way Emily had looked at him when she uncovered a truth tangled in the shadows of his past. An image slipped through his thoughts, a name whispered during quiet moments spent together. "Jonathan, what did she uncover?" Jake demanded, fear igniting in his voice. But Jonathan shook his head, his expression fraying. "Before the crash, just a call, that she found out about you and..." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. The truth, curling and dark, wrapped around Jake's heart like a vice. It was as if a wave had crashed, dragging down everything he believed. Was it possible? Had Emily unearthed something so explosive that it could shatter them all? Suddenly, another commotion erupted behind him. Yet he couldn't tear his gaze away from Jonathan. "What did she find?" Jake pressed, desperation burning through him. Jonathan opened his mouth, but before he could respond, an electric jolt ripped through the room. A scream pierced the air, sharp and chilling. It hit Jake like ice. He turned, his blood running cold. In the distance, he saw Diana, power flickering in her eyes as she staggered backward from a confrontation with a new figure, someone Jake never expected to see. His breath caught, and for a moment, the world blurred. "Dad?" Jake's heart dropped into an abyss of confusion. His father, long thought dead and buried in the past. What was he doing here? More dangerously, what did he know? Jake's chest tightened, emotions roiling within him. All the threads of his life clashed violently, revealing secrets he thought were secured in silence. Hope shattered as a truth he couldn't fathom loomed ahead. What was this new reality? What had Emily discovered? And how was it tied to the man who had haunted his past? Jake felt the bounds of his world unraveling, staring into the unknown with fear. What would happen next? Jake's heart raced as he took in the sight of his father standing there, a ghost from a past he thought buried forever. What was William Sullivan doing here? The chaos around them faded into a dull roar. The smell of antiseptic filled Jake's nostrils, mixing with the rising fear clawing at his throat. "Dad?" Jake's voice barely emerged above a whisper, laced with disbelief. Everything he thought he knew no longer felt solid. Behind him, Jonathan's pained expression mirrored the confusion swirling in Jake's mind. "Jake!" Diana's voice cut through the air, sharp and frantic. "This isn't the time. We need to get you back." "Shut up, Diana," he snapped, his focus solely on his father, the man he believed was dead. "What are you doing here?" William's face wore a pallor that made his eyes seem darker, deeply etched lines accentuating the turmoil within. "I didn't. I tried to stay away." "For your own good," he murmured, his voice thick with regret. "Why now?" The question burst from Jake's lips, driven by a hurricane of fear and anger. His world had just begun to shake good and hard, and he felt raw everywhere. "What does this have to do with Emily? With anything?" The nearby murmurs of panic around them faded, though the reality of their surroundings pulsed with uncertainty. Jake's pulse surged. He stepped closer, needing answers. "What did you do? I didn't mean for this to happen." William's eyes darted around, as though fearing the walls had ears. "Emily knew something. The truth about your mother." Suddenly, a loud crash sliced through the tension. A metal cart tipped over, sending supplies scattering across the floor. In the confusion, a figure emerged, a paramedic, eyes wide, rushing toward them, heart pounding in time with Jake's. "Mr. Sullivan," the medic gasped, desperate urgency in her voice. "Your fiancée is stable. We need to get you." "No," Jake roared, his voice full of fury and fear. He couldn't leave. Not now. He thrust the hand toward his father, grounding himself against the whirlwind of emotions. "You're not leaving until I understand." "Jake, listen." Jonathan's voice quaked, his eyes flitting anxiously. "Whatever your father needs to say, it could be dangerous. If Diana finds out—" A voice interrupted, icy and commanding. "What do you know, Jonathan?" Diana stepped closer, her frame rigid as she surveyed the scene. The shadows under her eyes deepened, revealing cracks in her carefully orchestrated facade. "This is not your business." Diana's presence loomed over them, a dark cloud dimming the possibility of hope. In an instant, the air shifted, and a frantic shout erupted from the emergency room behind them, where Emily lay. "No!" A chilling scream echoed from inside. An urgent alarm blasted, harsh and jarring. Nurses rushed past as chaos unfolded. Within the maelstrom, time splintered. Jake felt the ground beneath him shake. His father stepped back, eyes wide in horror. Words tumbled from William's lips, hard and unyielding. "I should have never come back. This is all my fault." What could he possibly mean? A storm brewed inside Jake, tightening his fists. "You've got to be lying!" he yelled. But beneath his fury, a knot of dread expanded, gripping his chest. Then, with a sudden clarity, everything aligned. "Is it true?" he demanded, voice trembling. "Did you know about Emily? About what she uncovered?" "Stop it!" Diana snapped, her voice a knife slicing through the bedlam. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." But Jake stood firm. His heart thundered, each pulse bringing a new damnation. "I need to understand what's happening before it's too late." In that moment, William locked eyes with his son, the ache of regret swallowed by determination. "Jake, you need to know your mother wasn't who you thought she was. And Emily, she's connected to it all." A deafening silence fell over them, every breath suspended in disbelief. As William's words hung heavy in the air, Jake felt a cold chill travel down his spine. Everything shifted. Relationships, truths, diverging paths that had never crossed. The specter of betrayal loomed. "Connected how?" he whispered, the pieces of his world teetering on the edge of disaster. But before William could respond, screams echoed anew. Paramedics rushed back, their expression wild. "There's been an emergency in treatment. We need all available hands." Jake reeled, the ground threatening to give way. What lay beneath the chaos? What had Emily uncovered? And what dark truths lay hidden in his family's past, ready to rise and swallow them whole? Jake's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a deafening echo in the chaos around him. Sirens wailed in the distance, the world blurring into a haze. He stood frozen, his father's words hanging heavy in the air. "Jake, you need to know, your mother wasn't who you thought she was." The weight of the revelation pressed down on him. "Connected how?" he demanded, voice barely above a whisper. His thoughts raced. Before William could answer, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The overhead lights flickered, casting uneasy shadows across their faces. Then, without warning, the emergency room doors burst open again. Panic surged through Jake as he turned. The paramedic who had just darted past now stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. "Evacuate! Everyone out, now!" she yelled, her voice rising above the chaos. "What? Why?" Jake asked, confusion flooding his senses. An active shooter situation. The paramedic's words crashed around the room like thunder, jolting Jake to his core. "Stay down." He didn't think. Instinct took over. He lunged for Jonathan, yanking him back towards the wall. The weight of adrenaline sending them both tumbling to the floor. Inside the chaotic mass of bodies, the cries turned frantic. Nurses dropped equipment, scrambling to safety. Jake's heart raced even faster. He could feel the heat rising, the metallic tang of fear in the air. Diana moved toward him, her expression eerily calm, eyes scanning. "You need to focus, Jake," she hissed, but her voice trembled. "Your father, he knows more." "No! I need to protect Emily!" Panic sliced through him. He had to get to her. "Jake!" Jonathan shouted, clutching his arm. "We can't leave!" But as Jake looked toward the treatment room, a muffled gunshot echoed through the hall. The world spun. Blood ran cold through Jake's veins as more screams filled the space. Panic clawed at him, raw and unyielding. He turned to his father, whose face had turned blank. "William, what do you know?" Jake's voice strained, barely controlling the tide of fear surging within him. William opened his mouth, but another gunshot rang out, this one far too close. Bodies hit the ground, shadows dancing across the walls. Jake's skin prickled with dread. "Emily!" he screamed, pushing to his feet, but Jonathan dragged him back. "Don't!" At that moment, a figure rushed into the room, a man dressed in black, mask pulled tight over his face, gun in hand. Time slowed. Jake's chest constricted. The intruder pointed the weapon straight at William. "You!" he shouted, voice cold as ice. "You owe me!" Jake reeled. His father? What did this mean? Instinctively, he stepped in front of William, heart racing. "Jake, get down!" Jonathan yelled. But Jake couldn't hear him. All he could think of was Emily, lying in that room, completely unaware of the horror unfolding. "Why are you doing this?" Jake shouted, confusion twisting with fear. "Who are you?" "What? Your whole life has been built on lies," the man spat out, seething with rage. "And it's time you paid the price." Shock slammed into Jake. His mind raced as the reality of the situation dawned on him. Nothing was what it seemed. Diana turned, her face pale, lips trembling. "We need to leave, now!" But Jake wouldn't leave without knowing. "What did you mean? What lies?" The man in black sneered. "Your mother was involved, Jake. And now you're all at risk." Every word struck like a lightning bolt. The web of secrets was unraveling fast. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. What had he stepped into? The chaos swirled around them, alive with fear and uncertainty, ready to engulf him whole. As Jake desperately searched for answers, another voice broke through the tension. "Jake, help me!" Emily. His heart cracked open. "Emily!" He could barely think, desperation clawing at him. What would he do? How would he face the truth in the midst of growing terror? With adrenaline surging, Jake realized time was slipping away. He would fight, not just for himself, but for the chance to protect Emily, to uncover the truth. Who could he trust when everything he thought he knew was about to blow apart? Jake's heart pounded in his chest, every nerve alive with fear as the intruder leveled the gun at William. The words echoed in Jake's mind, a relentless drumbeat of confusion and terror. "Your mother was involved, Jake." What did that mean? What had William done? "Don't you hurt him," Jake shouted, stepping forward despite Jonathan trying to hold him back. Everything blurred, the chaos around him, the cries of panic, the piercing tension in the air. "Enough," the man in black sneered, his finger twitching on the trigger. "This ends now." "Wait!" Jake's voice rang out, desperate and raw. "What do you want?" The gunman's eyes narrowed. "I just want what's mine. And this family has been hiding it for too long." "Family?" Jake spat, incredulous. "What do you know about family?" But his words hung in the air, heavy with dread. Diana moved beside him, her composed facade cracking. "Jake, we need to get out of here." "No," he shot back, glancing toward the emergency room. "Emily is in there. I can't leave without her." The panic in his chest surged as hesitant footsteps gained momentum behind him. The sirens outside were deafening now, trembling through his bones. The shadow of the gunman loomed, and Jake locked eyes with his father, desperation stretching the moment taut. "Who are you?" Jake demanded again, voice rising, a mixture of outrage and fear. "What do you mean my mother was involved?" Suddenly, without warning, the figure raised the gun higher, a wild look flashing in his eyes. "Your mother, Jake. She knew about the money. About everything, and it's time you paid back." Time slowed as realization crashed over him. "What money?" he whispered, heart racing. "What are you talking about?" But before the man could answer, a deafening blast pierced the air. Not gunfire. Something else. A crumbling boom echoed down the hall, sending a jarring shockwave through the building. Jake stumbled, the scene shifting as plaster rained from the ceiling. "An explosion?" Diana shrieked, instinctively moving toward Jake, pulling him to the floor. "Get down!" she urged, but he couldn't look away. In a flash, the emergency room door swung open, revealing Emily. She stumbled out, panic-wide eyes locking with Jake's. But it wasn't just fear. There was something else in her gaze. something urgent. "Jake, go!" Her voice tore through the chaos, panic thick in every word. "You have to leave. Now." But as he tried to move toward her, the man in black surged forward. "Get back! I won't let you!" Then everything exploded into chaos. The ground shook beneath them, the air filled with debris. The man fell, thrown back by the force of the shockwave, and in that moment, something astonishing happened. The dust began to settle, but Jake's eyes widened. He saw Emily, her hands raised, eyes glowing with an unfamiliar energy. "Jake, please," she shouted again. But her voice held an authority he'd never heard before. "What?" he managed, voice trembling. In a flash, the pieces of Emily suddenly clicked into place. The strength in her posture, the way she'd drawn him in all along. Panic seized his stomach as realization twisted toward fear. Was this why she was here? Had she known this all along? A deafening silence fell as the gunman writhed on the floor, shock written across his face. You're one of them," he gasped, fear shading his voice. Jake felt a cold wave wash over him. "What do you mean?" But Emily's eyes held a truth deeper than he could fathom. "I wanted to protect you, Jake," she cried. "Your family, they're in danger. More dangerous than you know." Before he could process her words, the chaos erupted around them again. The shadows twisted ominous shapes as the walls throbbed with energy. "Get up! We have to move!" Emily urged, urgency threading through her tone. Jake felt his world shatter. His heart raced. What truth had he stumbled into? Who was she really? And then another explosion sent them all tumbling to the ground. The darkness closed in. For now, questions swirled in the air. The stakes had changed. Old friends and family blurred as enemies crept closer. What had been hidden for so long was unearthing. Uncertainties rising up all around. "Come on, Jake!" Emily shouted, her voice fierce. "We're not alone in this." But could he trust her? What did he really know about the people surrounding him? As the echoes faded, the pulse of danger struggled to hush its voice. Jake's heart raced. What lay ahead? And what had he lost even before the battle began? Jake's heart raced as the world fell into disarray. The gunman was down, but the chaos only escalated. Emily shouted, an urgency lacing her voice. "Jake, we need to go now." But fear held him in place. His father stood behind him, eyes wide with something other than just fear. Jake could feel a tremor of understanding growing in the depths of his father's gaze, mingling with regret and something like caution. "Tell me now," Jake shouted, his chest tightening. "What do you know about my mother? What did she do? Was she involved in this mess?" Then another explosion erupted, shaking the very foundations around them. The lights flickered, and Emily squeezed her eyes shut, as if bracing against unseen waves. Jake felt the ground slip beneath him, a frantic surge drawing him toward her as the dust settled thick in the air. "Get down!" Diana's voice cut through the chaos, her body whipping protectively around William. Jake barely registered it. He could barely breathe. What did she have to do with this? He demanded again, voice fierce, echoing through the cacophony. William opened his mouth to speak, but instead of words, a loud crash echoed from behind them. It was loud, disorienting, a surge of noise rising to a fever pitch. Moments stretched agonizingly, every heartbeat echoing in his skull. And then he saw the man, the one dressed in black, lurching back to his feet, fury etched onto his face. In the midst of the bedlam, he drew a breath, pointing the gun once more. "Your mother's secret is her legacy, Jake," he snarled, rage boiling over. I'll expose everything." But before the words could sink in, another figure darted out from the shadows. A woman, fierce and wild, swept in like a storm. It was Margaret, Jake's old family friend, whose haunting laughter echoed through memories. "Stop!" she shouted, eyes blazing with a fire that startled Jake to the core. The man paused, confusion flickering over his features. "You? This doesn't concern you." But Margaret ignored him. "Jake, your mother was trying to protect you. This is bigger than you know. You have to listen." Confusion churned within him. Wasn't this the woman who whispered secrets in the dark? The one who once swore loyalty to his family? "Jake," she said again, urgency clinging to her every word. "Your family? It's been a lie built on lies. The truth about your mother, about everything. You have to know." Panic knotted his gut. "What truth?" he cried out. And just like that, Margaret took a step back, revealing what lay hidden in the shadows behind her. A small, sealed envelope, the edges worn with time. "You've been deceived, Jake. This is everything. About your mother's past and your future." He couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, heavy with the burden of unanswered questions. Was this how it ended? In the face of betrayal and a past he never understood? Before he could respond, another surge of panic exploded in the space around them. The gunman lunged, swinging the weapon in their direction. Instinct kicked in. Jake lunged forward, nearly colliding with Emily as they both moved to shield William. But in the chaos, their eyes met. Something shifted. They shared a moment, an unspoken understanding coursing between them. But before they could act, before the gravity of the situation could consume them entirely, a deafening roar echoed behind him. The building trembled like a wounded beast. A crack ripped through the wall, an opening bursting wide. Jake's heart dropped. "No. Get down." But it was too late. The wall caved in, a cascade of concrete and debris crashing toward them. A tidal wave of destruction. Time seemed to shatter into pieces, a surreal mix of confusion and clarity flooding his senses. The world spiraled in a flash. As the dust settled, Jake coughed, his heart hammering wildly. But then, a voice broke through the haze, crystalline clear amid the rubble. "Jake!" He looked up, and dread flooded through him, chills racing down his spine. It was his mother, standing there, alive in the rubble, looking as radiant and fierce as she had the day he lost her. "Jake, you need to trust me." Every instinct screamed at him. What was happening? Everything he thought he knew collapsed around him. His world, once grounded in unwavering truths, now hung precariously in the balance. "Mom?" he whispered, heart racing. But she only smiled, that haunting, familiar smile, and the question lingered like smoke in the air. Why now? What had changed? Who was the real Jake Sullivan? The chaos raged around him, but in that moment, as Jake stood torn between the past he thought was gone and the present ripping apart at the seams, only one thought pierced through. What did his mother know that could turn everything upside down? Jake stared, heart racing, as the dust began to settle. His mother, alive, standing before him, he couldn't comprehend it. Each breath he took felt heavier, a mix of disbelief and fear crashing over him like a tidal wave. "Mom?" The word escaped his lips, shaky and raw. How could she be here? "Jake, you need to trust me," she urged, but the tension in her voice spoke of urgency and desperation. Questions tumbled in his mind. What was she doing here? Why now? What secret had she been hiding all these years? Before he could voice any of his thoughts, Emily surged forward. "No, you shouldn't be here," she exclaimed, eyes wide, a mix of anger and protectiveness flaring. The air crackled with tension as the gunman shifted, eyes darting between the three of them. "This family is a mess," he snarled, still recovering from the blast that had knocked him down. "But I'm here to clean it up. You've kept the truth buried long enough." "Truth?" Jake echoed, heart pounding, wanting to understand. Margaret, still holding the envelope, shouted over the chaos. "Jake, open it! It's all in there!" But before he could think or act, the floor jolted beneath them, sending debris cascading. Everyone scrambled, fear electrifying the air. Then a figure rushed in, a paramedic breathing heavily. "We need to clear this area. Explosives were found. We're evacuating." "Explosives?" Jake's breath caught. The urgency in her eyes reflected the growing danger, but all he could see was Emily, her fear blending with determination. "Jake, I swear I'll explain everything later, but we can't stay." Then something in her gaze shifted. It wasn't just fear. It was that flicker of power he sensed earlier. "Trust me," Emily pleaded, but the crowd began to surge. Another crash echoed in the building, and Jake felt dizziness swirl in his brain. He had to choose. "Jake," his father's voice cut through, "it's not what you think." "Shut up!" Diana interrupted, jittering with panic. "This isn't the place for family drama." Before he could argue, William rushed toward Jake, grabbing his arm. "You don't understand the danger." A sudden sound burst through the din. A voice, haunting and familiar. "Help me!" Jake's heart dropped. It was her, his sister, Mia. He thought she'd been safe. He hadn't seen her in years. "Mia?" Jake shouted, panic grabbing him like a vice. "Where are you?" "Over here." "Jake!" Emily shouted, but everything felt surreal. He struggled against the whirlwind of bodies to locate her, the screams echoing louder now as the panic swelled. "Get back," the gunman warned, but Jake didn't flinch. He'd seen too much suffering, too many lies. Not again. "Stay away from them," he yelled, the heat of urgency spurring him on. And then something exploded. Not the building, the room. An energy washed over them, vibrant and fierce, sending everyone crashing back as a blinding light enveloped Mia. "Jake!" she cried again, but her form pulsed, shifting in the radiance. "You don't know the truth about us. It's bigger than anything." Jake felt everything inside him shatter, the panic igniting into flames of confusion. "What are you saying?" he breathed. But in the instant the light faded, a revelation washed over him. In that moment, the gunman staggered back, eyes wide, not with rage, but fear. "No, it can't be." The truth dawned, the kind of truth that sent ripples across the fabric of reality. Mia's power charged the air, a wild current that could shift everything. "You're not just family," Mia spoke softly, her voice grounding yet electrifying. "You're part of this, part of me." With that, Jake felt his world tilt on its axis. Relationships fractured. Secrets that had protected them now bore the weight of devastation. The gunman's expression twisted into disbelief. "This can't be." Jake stood frozen, uncertainty gnawing at his core. What did this mean for them? What had he stumbled into? Mia, radiant as always, drew closer. "Jake, it's time to face the truth." Questions filled the air, but Jake felt a chill. What was the truth that could change everything? And what did it spell for his family, for Emily, and for the fate they still had yet to confront? Jake stood frozen, his heart hammering as the chaos swirled around him. His mother's stunning reappearance felt like a cruel twist of fate. All those years of grief and mourning fell away in an instant, but so did any semblance of clarity. "Mom?" he breathed again, disbelief lacing his voice. He wanted to reach out, to understand, to make sense of all the dreams that crumbled around him. Emily's eyes were wide, fear flashing through her like lightning. "No, Jake, we can't trust her." The urgency gripped her. Behind them, the gunman stumbled, momentarily stunned, but darkness still loomed. Diana clutched William tighter, the trembling of her hands betraying her surface-level confidence. "Mom, what do you mean?" Jake pushed, desperation infused in every word. "How are you here? What secret?" But he didn't get an answer. Instead, Mia stepped forward, fear and resolve shining bright through the tension. "Jake, there's so much you don't know about our family, about everything," she urged, stepping closer to him, her presence like a beacon of hope. "The truth is woven deep." Before she could finish, another loud crash made the walls shudder. It was the sound of something breaking, something important. The crowd around them shrieked and gasped, bodies jerking in panic as debris fell from above. In the midst of chaos, the gunman turned wild, eyes darting in panic, realizing the distraction now took a lethal turn. And then it happened. All at once, an explosion erupted from the floor above. The roar shook the foundation, dust and rubble raining down like confetti. Screams echoed, piercing through the haze of confusion. Jake instinctively grabbed Emily, pulling her close as the explosion's shockwave slammed into them, knocking him off his feet. He fell hard against the ground as bodies surged around him. A haze of dust filled the air, blinding him. He choked on the cloud. Panic gripped him. "Jake!" Emily's voice sliced through the chaos, frantic and clear. He blinked, trying to rise, but the weight of debris threatened to pin him to the ground. "Mia, where are you?" he shouted, fighting against the growing tide of fear. The world felt upside down, spinning like a wild ride. "I'm right here." Mia's voice was oddly calm amid the chaos. He looked up to see her glowing with radiant energy again, light shimmering around her. Jake could barely wrap his mind around it, but something shifted in him. That energy, was it power or something else? But before he could question further, time suddenly froze. A wave rippled through the dust. A shock wave pulsed back toward them. And in an instant, he saw the truth in Mia's eyes. She wasn't just a sister, nor was she simply here to save the day. "I'm not who you think I am, Jake," she said, voice resolute as the smoke enveloped them. The air thickened, and a gasp fell from his lips as realization dawned. This was no coincidence. She wasn't just his sister. She was a key to everything that might have crumbled, revealing hidden paths buried in shadows. But just then, another shadow moved through the haze. The gunman, guns drawn, eyes wild with fury, pushed toward them, fear morphing into desperation. "You think you can hide behind her?" he spat, facing Mia. "The truth is finally coming to light." In that moment, everything spiraled. The gunman fired, but something within Mia sparked. A shield of light shielded them, a barrier that deflected the bullet and sent the gunman staggering back. Jake's heart thundered, reality fragmented into chaos. "What did you just do?" he gasped, breathless. Mia's expression shifted, clarity seeping through the once familiar features. "I'm not just a Sullivan," she whispered. "There are connections deeper than blood. I'm part of something you still don't understand." Jake's mind spun. The webs of deceit tightened, threatening to undo everything he thought he knew. Just as the world felt on the edge of different truths colliding, another figure stepped out from behind the emergency exit, his grandfather. "Jake, you need to listen. It's not too late." Shock coursed through him, leaving him numb. The fragments of truth began to line up in maddening clarity. What had his family hidden all this time? What was this fight really about? As darkness loomed, it became clear. Answers waited just out of reach. "Mom, please tell me everything," he shouted, desperation ringing in the silence. But they stood at the precipice, all uncertain. And amid it all, a choice loomed, one that could unravel everything they stood for. What truths were buried deep beneath the surface? And who would still be standing once everything came crashing down? Jake could barely catch his breath, the chaos swirling around them as the dust began to settle. His heart raced, fear gnawing at him. His mother stood there, alive, full of urgency and secrecy. "You need to trust me, Jake," she pleaded. But trust felt precarious. Emily, glowing with an unseen power, stepped in front of Jake. "We can't let him hurt you," she shouted, facing the gunman. The air thickened with tension. Breaths caught tight in throats. "Enough!" Jake shouted, the urgency rising through him like a tidal wave. "What's happening?" Mia, radiant and fierce, moved next to him. "We are on the brink of something huge, Jake. The truth about our family, it's all connected." The gunman staggered back, eyes wide. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he spat, desperation mingling with rage. But suddenly, the building shook again, another explosion rattling the walls. Panic surged through the crowd. "Get down!" Emily yelled. They all ducked as debris fell, but Jake's eyes never left Mia's fiery gaze. "Tell me," he pleaded, confusion and fear swirling in his chest. This was bigger than all of them combined. "Your mother, she's part of a legacy," Mia spoke, voice steady. "There's power here, Jake. Something your family has kept buried. Something dangerous." But the gunman wasn't giving up. He lunged, the weapon aimed, just as the paramedics poured back in, filled with urgency and determination. "Get to safety," they called, scrambles of feet echoing through the chaos. "I won't let you take him," Mia cried, a fierce light pulsing around her. The walls trembled again, an energy bursting forth. In that split second, Jake saw everything flash before him. His family, their secrets, the hurt that bonded them, and amid it all, a thin thread of hope. The gunman couldn't win. The truth would rise. "Mia!" Jake shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. "Can you stop him?" With a fierce determination, she focused her energy. Light poured around her, illuminating the room, and with a powerful pulse, it surged forward, pushing the gunman back. "I will protect us." The shock in the man's eyes mirrored Jake's own. "What is this?" he gasped. The power of her light, blinding and beautiful. But another cry rang out. "Get back!" Jake didn't hesitate. He surged forward, grabbing Emily's hand. "We have to go, now!" With a frantic energy, they rushed through the chaos, heading toward the exits. "This way!" Emily yelled, guiding them through the collapsing hall. Outside, the fresh air hit them hard. They tumbled into the sun, the sirens still wailing behind them. But they were alive. They made it. Heart pounding, Jake turned back, emotions swirling within him. "Jake!" Mia's voice broke through. "This isn't over. We have to uncover the truth together." He nodded, feeling a mix of dread and hope. "We will," he promised, determination blooming in his chest. But in that fleeting moment, all was not resolved. The secrets still loomed over them, ready to emerge. As they caught their breath, Jake's heart sank momentarily. His family had shattered, but in many ways, it was also beginning to reforge. They had faced darkness together, and as the sun hung low in the sky, shining through the dust, Jake knew there was a new journey ahead. Would they face it as a family? What lay on the horizon? "Jake," Emily said softly, eyes shining, "we're in this together." He felt a warmth begin to spread within him, even amidst uncertainty. They'd fight for the truth, whatever it took. And just before he turned to answer, Jake caught a flash of movement in the shadows beyond, a figure he recognized too well. William? What was he still hiding? The story wasn't over. "Hey, before wrapping up, I need to remind you, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Smash that like button now to keep this channel alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from every one of you. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know this journey is just beginning. Keep your eyes peeled. More is coming soon.